I'm actually making a career switch, so I'm going into software, but I'm thinking like being mechanical. Pretty easy to learn as well. Yeah, because yes, it's kind of like something you do on your own. And then mechanical I'm interested for I don't want to get figuring out kind of how to get it. Thank you for the show.
If we can start to gather, come up here, please. I want you to invoke this way by Allah. By Allah. Come on, come on. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أفضل الصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيد الخلق سيد محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. So I just wanted to make a couple of quick announcements, inshallah, before we hand the microphone to our guest. Number one, tomorrow we do have a family night. Tomorrow from 6 to 10 at the AlAmaan Middle School. So this is the first Saturday of every month. We have our regular family nights. So tomorrow is January 4th. We have features for people of all ages. We have a story time for ages 3 to 7. We have sports for the older group, and we also have Sheikh Kareem Izzat coming to us from the Al-Aman Institute, speaking, continuing his series on the Hujurat, Surah Al-Hujurat, specific behaviors that we should inculcate for our communities, inshallah. So this has been going now for 3 or 4 months, alhamdulillah. So these are series that are going to continue tomorrow, inshallah, and into the spring, inshallah. Secondly, we have a few exciting things coming up. They're still in the works, so they're not 100% official yet. But we're trying to bring Al-Amaan Janda from Al-Aman Institute later this month. We have a few other things that are working we're working on. So please follow us on social media or through the email so that you can keep up with our latest events, inshallah. So today's topic is transformation, living your best self, spiritually, physically, and socially. And I think this is the right time for a topic like this. Typically around this time of the year, people are talking about New Year's resolutions and whatnot, and looking about setting goals for themselves. And not that we necessarily believe in New Year's resolutions per se, but we should always be looking internally and reviewing ourselves and looking at ways that we can improve ourselves, improve our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and getting better in different areas of our lives. So I think this is the perfect topic and the perfect time for Sheikh Walid. So Jazakumullah khair, and Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وصحبه أجمعين. First off, I request all the people in the back to move up front. Number one. تعالوا. تقارب. Now why don't you come over this way, partner? A little more. That's good. Well, now people sitting in the chairs, I assume you have some sort of knee injury, so you can't sit on the floor. Does that go for all of you? You missed the pointer? How does that injure your knee go? Oh. Shafakallah after. So, thank you. So I'm very, very excited to be with all of you tonight. I know there's a million things you could be doing on Friday night, that you could be doing elsewhere. So that's a nice thing. And what I wanted to do, we have a large range of ages here. I think from like 4. How old are you? I guessed it right. To like, I don't know, 45? 46? So that's kind of difficult to...
You're all good.
Okay, thanks. It's kind of difficult to address all at the same time, but I'm going to do my best to do that from 4 to 44. We can actually rename the class 4 to 44. Right. Anyway. So this is the first week in January 3rd today, and as Stanislav was saying, it's a time that people think, okay, let's do something new, let's change my life around, let's do something different. And the reason people usually think about doing something different is because something about the previous way they're doing things they feel they can improve upon. And so there's an opportunity when there is a new date or a new month, a new opportunity to do that. And the first thing that I'd like to say is that that opportunity is always there. It doesn't take the beginning of a new year or a new month or your birthday or graduating from high school or preschool in order to take that opportunity. but you can do it anytime. You can make a change in your life anytime. And that's the beautiful thing about our life, our way of life, that we have this opportunity to change it anytime. And we live in a time now where many people feel like something needs to be changed, something needs to be different, and they're not happy with how they feel. So usually, when people want to evaluate their life, they say, how does it feel? It doesn't feel right, or it doesn't feel the way I want it to feel. I don't get either the satisfaction or the joy or the happiness that I was hoping to get from my life, via my different relationships, via my job, via things I'm doing at school, whatever. If we expect to get happiness out of those things on their own merit alone, we're always going to be disappointed. Because rarely does anything actually measure up to your expectations. So one of the things about life is managing your expectations. And it's natural and normal to have very high expectations. And especially now we live in a culture that very much emphasizes this idea you can do anything you want and be anything you want. And to have these very high expectations, and then we have all of this technology that allows us to compare our life with everybody else's life. So if you have social media, Instagram or Twitter or Snapchat, whatever it is, then it's very easy to, look at their weekend, what it looked like, and the fun places they did, and the fun things they did. And I sat at home and, I made mashed potatoes with my mom, something like that. So, it's not a bad thing. But when people have this constant comparison and looking, what did they do, and what did I do, what did they do, what did I do, and so forth, it's very easily to feel inadequate and feel like you don't measure up to everything. And in reality, the only thing you really need to measure up is to your own self. What anybody else is doing, number one, two things about it. It's not real. Most of the things that people put out there it's their highlight reel, right? It's like the best part of what they do. They don't have like a minute by minute, play by play about what they're doing with their life. Otherwise, it would look much different. But they put the best things out there, so it's not really indicative of how they live. And we know that from ourselves because we do the same thing. And number two, just because something on the outside looks good and looks fun and looks satisfying and looks joyful doesn't mean it's on the inside. And so people of deen, people of faith, one of the things we want to think about is how do we master and cultivate this inner life. Like inner life is like when I wake up in the morning, how do I feel? And when I go to sleep at night, how do I feel? And when I interact with things throughout the day, how do I feel? And that is available to everybody. It's not just the people who are high achievers or the people who have the best grades in school or the people who are the best athletes or the people who can sing the threes consistently, something Lana doesn't know too much about. But, otherwise, you'd be depressed about it because you can't do that, right? Or how many times the Islanders can win the Stanley Cup, which is, 0 in the past 10 years, but just count it. So, anyway.
We're going to cut this out of the film.
So those things, even though there's a lot of emphasis on that making you be who you are, they're not really the thing that makes you who you are. And you'll find even that people who supposedly are in these positions of high success and high achievement, when they become very honest and people start asking them honest questions and they answer honestly, you find that it's not as we thought it was, that they too have the same issues. They too get depressed, and they too feel inadequate, and they too feel they don't get the joy and happiness out of life, blah, blah, blah. And we say it all the time. So that means there must be something else. That's not the secret. So if I were to kind of put it into words, and I'm not saying I have it all down myself, but if, from what I understand from my own teachers and my own experiences, if I were to put it down into words, I would say that it is being the best version of yourself. Everybody has the best version of themselves. And the best version of yourself is most of the time beyond your own imagination. We don't really know what we're capable of. We're always limiting ourselves. And what I mean by limiting, I don't mean like, I guess I could be president. Chances are no one in this room is ever going to be president. But that doesn't mean you're not going to be the best version of yourself, right? The best version of yourself means not just what you do externally on the outside, it's how you're living on the inside. And this is what's really going to count. Because as we said in the khutbah today, we're all living on a clock, on a timer. Even the 4-year-old and even the 46-year-old. We're all living on a clock. So that means one day the clock will expire. And then whatever we were in life, whatever was the version of ourselves, is who we really are. So it didn't really matter that much if you were a doctor or a lawyer or a carpenter or a candlestick maker. At the end of the day, it's who you were with everything around. What was your deen? How did you deal with people? Were you honest? Were you sincere? Were you humble? Did you have trustworthiness? People trust you or people not trust you? Were you trustworthy to begin with so people can trust you? These are all things that need to be, if you don't have them already, they need to be cultivated. There's actually a process and a methodology for you to work on them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us many, many gifts. So He gives us this physical form that at the end of the day, we're just really borrowing, we're renting it, so to speak. It's on loan. We're not paying any money for it, but it's on loan. We're just occupying it right now. And we know when we occupy something, someone is loaning something out to us, what do we want to do? In what state do we want to return it to the owner?
Better than we had it. Better than we had it.
Better than we had, or at least not worse than when we got it, right? So if this physical body is something, it's a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then part of the deen then also is maintaining it, right? And using it in the right way and not abusing it. That's why we have, in Islam, we have things we're supposed to eat or things we're not supposed to eat, things we're supposed to drink, things we're not supposed to drink. All of that goes back to the idea, I want to return it and maintain it in the best way. The deen, right? Al-halal wal-tayyib. Halal doesn't just mean that it says halal stamp on the box, but al-tayyib, right? Where did it come from? Whose money was used to buy it? Was that money halal? Was it procured in a halal way? Was it acquired in a halal way? The animal that, if you're going to eat an animal, how did it live? Did it eat the things it's supposed to eat and live in the way it's supposed to live? Or was it abused and mistreated and slaughtered in a brutal way, and then I go and eat it? The people who prepare my food, do they really care about me, or do they hate their job flipping burgers at McDonald's and working for minimum wage or less, and they just hate what they're doing, and then we put that inside of ourselves. So all these things will affect how we feel inside. This is something that's been tried and proven. You eat something that's made halal and that's tayyib, and by someone who loves you and is spreading that love with the food, it's going to make you feel different than something that's not. So being aware and cognizant of what we are eating, number one. So we're talking about the physical, now we'll get to the other parts. Number two about the physical is how much do we eat? Right? Our bodies were designed by whom? Charles Darwin? No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So our bodies were designed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so He knows what's good for it and what's not good for it. What's going to make it work, what's not going to make it work. And so how much we eat is important. And the number one person who was sent by Allah to tell us all of these things was who? Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And what did he say about how much we eat? He said, حسب بنو آدم لقيمات يقومن به صلاة. فإن كان ولا بد فثلث لطعامه ثلث لشرابه ثلث لهوائه. أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. It's enough لقيمات. It's enough to eat a little bit, it'll keep you going, rather than eating a lot. And if you're going to go like the extreme, when kana wala bud, then 1/3 for your food, 1/3 for your drink, and 1/3 leave it empty. And he said about how he used to eat, نحن قوم لا نأكل حتى نجوع ولا نقوم حتى نشبع. We're a people, we don't eat until we get hungry. And we're also people that we don't eat until we are completely full. How many of us live by that rule? Who would say that honestly? Don't raise your hand, but just think about that. How many of us do? You live like that? You only eat when you're hungry? And then you don't, when you eat, you don't get full? متأكد؟ طيب. 4-year-old. Who knew? So if we live by that way, our life would look different, believe it or not. It sounds like a little thing, but it's not a little thing. The way we eat now, we snack a lot, we eat a lot of junk food. We eat not because we're hungry. How many of us have ever eaten something because we had nothing else to do, we were bored? Yes. How many of us ever eaten something because we were in a bad mood and we thought maybe the food would change our mood? Correct. How many of us ate because we just walked into the kitchen and there was something there and said, why don't we just eat that? So all of that type of eating and treating the physical is not purposeful. So we want to change our life and make it full of purpose. Full of, like, everything I do, there's a why behind it. And there's a how. Not just I'm doing it because I'm doing it or because everybody else is doing it. So step one with food is, let me be very purposeful. Let me choose the things I'm going to eat. Let me make sure they're halal and tayyib. Let me make sure that I don't eat unless I'm hungry. And let me make sure that when I do eat, I get up before I'm completely full. Stop 2 bites from full. In other words, okay, there's 2 bites left. I could eat it, but I can also get up and not eat it. Try that. You'll find that not just physically you're going to feel better, but spiritually and emotionally you'll feel better because you said no. People don't know the power of saying no. Everybody's talking about saying yes and how important it is to say yes. But to say no to the thing that is the number one enemy that gets in our way, as the Prophet ﷺ said, نَفْسُكَ الَّتِي بَيْنَ جَنْبَيْكَ. This nafs, this ego, this thing that's you at the same time, when you say no to it, then the other you can come out. Who's the other you? The best version. But there's the lower version of you who gets in the way. The lower version of you wants to eat whenever he or she feels like it. Wants to eat for comfort. Wants to eat because they're sad. Wants to eat because it's just there. Wants to eat all of the sweet things and leave out all of the nutritious things. That's not the best version of you. But in order to get to the best version of you, you have to say, hey, you to the side. Lower version of me. Because I want the best version of me to come out. And so how we treat our bodies physically is important. That begins with what we eat, how we eat, how often we eat. You know, we eat a lot of meat, we eat a lot of dairy. Most people in the world today don't eat a lot of meat because they can't afford it. It's a luxury. Meat has always been considered to be a luxury. Many of your, well, maybe not parents, but definitely your grandparents, I would say, didn't eat meat probably not once a week, maximum. If that much. Maybe less. Maybe even a couple times a month, maximum. And that's how many people live. And they found, there was a study I read about last year, that the healthiest diets are found in what people consider to be the most impoverished countries, like sub-Saharan Africa, like Botswana and Chad and these countries. People think that they're impoverished and they're very poor. They actually have the healthiest diets because they don't eat any processed food. Everything they eat is organic, and they don't eat that much meat. And then what they eat, they don't eat too much of it to begin with. So it's more of a balanced and a healthy diet. So for us, balance and healthy is not just about being a particular weight, like the whole image consciousness that's in this country. It's not about that only. It shouldn't be anything about that. You have your shape. You're going to have your body shape, and that's something that goes back to genetics and and what you inherited and many other factors besides what you eat. So don't think just a perfect diet, I'm going to look a particular way, that this society, this culture tells us we have to look a particular way. You don't have to look like that. Look like who you're supposed to look like. Look like the best version of who you are supposed to look like. But in order to get to that, we have to have this, what we call siyasa or iqtisad. It's got a middle way, this balance in how we go about eating. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba practiced. They did it naturally. It was something that they had, and they also did it very effectively. So that's step one in terms of physical. Step two in terms of physical also is that we also live very what they call sedentary lives. We don't move around a lot. We tend to sit around a lot. If you are sitting more than you are standing most of your day, something's not right. You should be moving around more than just sitting around. And obviously that's not very easy. People have desk jobs and have to sit in front of a computer, things like that. But there are ways to get around that. They say every half an hour, 45 minutes at least, you get up and walk around. Don't just sit there. And those things actually, our bodies were designed to be maintained by meeting with what they call resistance. Just like your soul has a resistance, it tells you this, wants you to eat more and you say no. So there's also this resistance idea with the muscles. So we know that people who are bedridden for like days or a week or two, they have significant muscle loss. Right? The muscles go away, and when they get up, it's much harder to get up. And they have to go to actually type of therapy and physical therapy and rehab in order to learn to get up and walk again, even for just a 2-week stay, if they're bedridden.
Atrophy.
Yeah, muscle atrophy. So imagine if we're kind of living that almost every day. We're not moving around, we're not being physically active. So it's important, men and women, boys and girls, to be physically active. Right? And honestly, if you're like 15, 16, 17 or older, and you can't do 20 push-ups in a row, you have to reevaluate your physical fitness. I know it says teaching to what, like 12 push-ups in a row. What was the last count? 1,200, right? Oh yeah, over 12 years, yes, that's correct. One a day and one every other day. But seriously, you will feel better about yourself too. And my recommendation is you start your day that way. How you start usually leads to how you end. When ashraqat bidayatu, ashraqat nihayatu. Whoever's beginning is enlightened and illumined and good, then their end will be so. So you want to start the day really running, maybe even physically running, but doing something active. Right? And I'm going to talk about the other part of the spiritual part in a second. So physically, you want to be able to be moving a lot, even if it's just taking a walk. And it's interesting, if you read the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ and many of the hadith, it's like most of the events that happened as they were taking place were happening outside, not indoors, but outdoors. They were spending the vast majority of their time outside. And if you look to what their houses used to look like and how big they were very small. Most of their, what we call houses, not rooms, their whole house, would be about the size, half the size of the average walk-in closet in a master bedroom in this county. Less than that. You know what a walk-in closet is? You know that big room that your parents don't want you to go with the double doors and you keep it closed? When you sneak in there and run around, and when you go in, there's like a closet that's next to the bathroom, and you open it up, it's like, oh wow, this is a big room. That's a closet, a walk-in closet. Their houses were smaller than this. The house of the Prophet ﷺ that was next to his Masjid, where he is now buried, that room was probably no bigger than, like a regular room, probably like 10 by 10 feet, maybe 15 by 15 maximum. So it was really there just as a place to rest, a place to sleep, a place to retire after the day, but during the day, they were active, they were doing things, they were in the world. And, I remember as a child, I spent most of my day outside. In fact, I grew up with Sultan here, and we used to get in a lot of, he used to get in a lot of trouble. I had to get him out of trouble. I didn't get in trouble. He used to get in a lot of trouble. I had to bail him out sometimes. We wanted to beat him up. I had to show up, kid that. But we spent most of the day, remember that?
Not really. But okay.
We spent most of the day outside. And most of the day seeing things, exploring things, getting our hands dirty, being physical. Nowadays people are afraid of all that. Nowadays people feel like, oh, it's not safe and there's people around and what's going to happen. But you have to experience life. You have to have that resistance, right, in order to cope with things in life. So physically, that has to be a part of our everyday, our routine. And I know most people today, when you have your free time, after you've done your homework, and after you've done whatever you need to do, what is the number one activity you young guys go to?
School.
No, after school and after homework.
Video game.
Huh?
Video game.
Tell the truth. No, it's called Fortnite. Yeah, please. I know. Oh, you guys beyond Fortnite. Fortnite is passe now, right? Yeah, okay. But it's some type of video game. And what a video game does is lets you pretend life. It's not real life, it's pretend life. You can pretend to go into the jungle, pretend to go into, you know, the lair of Darth Vader in Star Wars or something like that, and you pretend to do those things. And so it's like, I admit there's an imagination part to it that is interesting. But if you only live in that, in your free time, you don't live the real life, how are you going to contend with the real life? Because real life has actually, if you delve into it, more interesting and exciting things than all of that, if you really do. So physically, we have to keep ourselves kind of in the game of life and not in just a video game on the screen. So that's physically. Physically is important. What about this thing spiritually? What does that mean to be spiritually healthy? Anyone know? I want to make a guess. What's it spiritually healthy? Okay.
What?
Ibrahim?
Having a connection with Allah.
Having a connection with Allah. Back. Remembering Allah.
Not feeling some of these diseases like jealousy, hatred.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me ask you this. When the day is warm and sunny, and it's a day off when we don't have to go to school, how do we feel inside? Happy. How come?
Happy, good, and
Why? Huh? No. But what are you going to do during the day that's going to make you happy? Well, one at a time. You can do things that you like, right? What if the day is cold and it snowed a little bit, but not enough to close school, and you still have to go to the bus stop and get on the bus? How do you feel? Not very happy.
7 full hours of work.
Right.
200 minutes.
Right. What if I were to tell you that even on the cold day, when it's not enough snow to close school, there is a way to still feel happy inside? Yes. It's possible. There's a way. Because what's going on with us, Marius Blue Under Armour? There's a way, even when everything is bleak, or not like the way you like it outside, that you can still make it the warm and sunny day that you want inside. Isn't it just as easy as closing my eyes and imagining it's that way? And then if I see it that way inside myself, isn't it that way for me? If I want it to be? It's possible. I can do that. It may sound difficult, but it's not impossible. So the key then to part of this spiritual life is, number one, to have an imagination. Right? Don't just live in the limitation of what you see. Live and open yourself up to the imagination of something much more than that. Because with any situation that comes your way, you can deal with it in a way that makes it nice. Somebody is mean to you, right, and they want to beat you up. It's not very nice. But what if I were to deal with them in a way that made them not want to beat me up anymore, and then it becomes nice? Then it becomes something nice for me, not something bad for me. So every situation has a way I can deal with it. Every situation has a way I can live it inside of me to contend with that situation. Rather than just seeing it as awful, seeing it as bad, and then reacting in that way. That I can treat it in that way. How? Well, I have to start living inside my heart. Or I have to let my heart start dictating and living and telling me how things really are, instead of the lower version of myself. The lower version of myself wants to just eat, wants to play video games, wants to do everything that's easy, right? So whenever they find difficulty, they're always going to say, oh, that's too hard, we don't want to do that, that's difficult. That's the lower version. But the best version of you, no, that's a challenge, that's interesting. I think let's try this. I'm not afraid of this situation. I'm not afraid to try this thing out. I'm not afraid for that person who's mean to me to say something nice to them and see how they deal with that. Because they're expecting me to say something mean back. So let me do the opposite and see what happens. That's the best version of yourself who's waiting to come out. How do I tap into that? How do I get that person to come out of me? Well, I'm going to tell you. The first step to help that person come out of being a born is realize I am that person. I can be that person. Don't ever think it's limited and I cannot be. Who you are today or who you are yesterday is not necessarily the person you're going to be tomorrow or the day after that. You can change. You can do things different in your life. You can actually change the outlook of your whole life. And it can turn on a dime like that if you wanted to. And even more so if Allah wants it. Do you have a question?
No, I have a comment.
Okay, comment.
Like when someone makes you like feel bad, like what you just talked about it like a moment ago,
Mhm.
and the same thing happening in school. One day I had the best like school day I've ever had in like 5th grade so far, and then the next day I had like a worse day, but it was still a good day because that other bully, I should say, or that person was trying to separate me from other kids, or just like say rude things that would yeah, basically.
Okay, so what was the resolution? What happened?
I got like I started making a face, but I didn't really say anything, and never mind. I think that's all.
Okay. So there was a point to that story. Thank you for your contribution. You have something you want to say? What's your name? Mahmoud. Who?
Last time I played hide and seek in my school.
Okay. Very good. 4 to 44. So even a 4-year-old, and actually to be completely honest with you, if we could live as adults as we were when we were children, we would get that thing that we're talking about, that spiritual life. If we had the innocence of Mahmoud and saw the world like that, then we'd be already living with the thing that we're talking about. It's all of these layers that come on later, right? That kind of forget about that innocence of life and innocence of the world. And the world can be like that in my eyes if I want it to be. And I'm not saying there's not evil, there's not bad people, and there are, definitely. But how I contend with that whole situation, right? Inside of me, if I do it with fresh, innocent eyes, then that will be the way I can actually handle it. But if I deal it with dark eyes, with darkness everywhere, and with bleak outlook, then everything will just be magnified as dark and bleak. So we want to tap back into that inner innocence. And the way to do it, as you thought it kind of alluded to it a little bit, we have things inside of us we need to get rid of. We have anger, we have jealousy, we have bad opinion of people, we're always questioning other people's intention and their motivation, and we always think the worst when they do a particular thing, and they can be the closest people to us, but we still always jump like that's the worst case scenario of why they're doing that, and we'll make up all these reasons why they are the way they are, and we don't just give them what's called the benefit of the doubt. Because all of these things, when we make these judgments and decisions in our head about these things, we don't know the reality. It's just a guess, right? It's just a judgment, and it may not actually be like that. And that's what makes people kind of duplicitous and conniving and condescending and mocking and rude. The next time somebody's rude to you that doesn't know you, know 100% it has nothing to do with you. And it has everything to do with them. Something's wrong with them. You didn't do anything. You had nothing to do with it. It's them. They're fighting with themselves. They're not fighting with you. So the next time we encounter a situation where someone is like that with us, it's like, I don't feel angry with them. I actually feel sorry for them. That they're in a place and a position in the world where they have to take it on everybody else because something's wrong is going on with them. So the first step to like a spiritual renewal is focus inwardly on yourself and getting rid of the bad feelings. Because the bad feelings are not based upon reality. They're based upon what the low version of you saying, oh, look at that. They're trying to bully you, or they're trying to one-up you, or They want you not to have the same friends as they do, so they're trying to talk bad about you in front of other people so you don't have any friends like them. All these scenarios that run in our head when we see things like this. I'm not saying none of those things can't be true. They can be. But when you see that with somebody, it has nothing to do with you. It's them. They're in a bad state. So how do you encounter someone with a bad state? Do you encounter them with your bad state? Or do you encounter them with your good state? Right? Because when there's a fire, if you throw oil at it, what happens?
You're making more fire.
More fire. What if I throw water at it? It goes away. So you have to be cool like the water. What else do we know about water? Whatever cup or flask or vessel that you put it in, it fills it, right? It kind of fills its way in, and it makes that glass, right, a receptacle for the water. So we want to do that. We're the water. So whatever situation that comes around us, we want to be able to fill out that situation in a way where we still hold the water in place and it doesn't spill and splash all over the place. So we look at the situation. Oh, look at that cup. It's kind of long and skinny, you know, at the bottom, and it gets fat at the top, or the opposite. It's fat at the bottom, then it gets skinny at the top. So I'm going to fill it out in the way that it is. So I'm going to deal with the situation in the manner that I think will bring out a good result and a good state, not just for me, but for the other person. Then when you start living like this, you start to see people differently. Because you know what? The reality is, nobody is here or doing anything except if Allah wants them to. So another level of the spiritual state is seeing, wait a minute, they're not acting independently. They're not doing this all by themselves. They're the way they are because Allah wants them to be that way. Right? Maybe He didn't command them to be that way. Maybe He doesn't like them being that way. But they are that way because Allah willed them to be that way. So they're in my life, and I'm dealing with them in my situation for a reason. And maybe the reason is Allah sending them my way to help me and to help them. Not to punish me, not to punish them, but to help them and to help me. And I can help them by helping myself. And I can help myself by helping them. So you want to be a source of good in the world, not to add and make it worse in the world. So every second of your life, think of it as we said earlier, you know how you're borrowing this body, and we want to return it in a way that's as good as, or better than when we got it. Every second in your life is like that too. So every second in your life that you got opportunity, you want to return it back to Allah once it goes away in a better state than you received it. So you got into a bad second of your life, we'll return that second in a better way with how you deal with it inside of yourself. Then you will find, once you start living that spiritual life, then socially, things will begin to differ, which brings us to the last part of our discussion. What's the social thing? Well, it's really how we deal with everybody else. And really, there are two ways to deal with people. It's not only a third. Either you deal with them based upon what you can get out of the interaction or the relationship. So you're looking to say, well, what are they doing for me? What can I get from them? How is their behavior affecting me? That's one way to do it. The other way to say is, what can I do for them? Not what can they do for me. What can I do for them? And we said very early about expectations. If I am dealing with people on the basis of what they can do for me, what will my expectations look like? Will it be low or high? All I'm thinking about, what can they do for me? What type of expectations am I going to have? Very high expectations, do I not? Would I always want them to do like great things for me? Correct? They should always pay for lunch when we go out. And they should be the ones to call me, not me call them first. And, they should, when they're captain of the basketball team, they should pick me first. I'm really sorry to do that all the time. But you weren't that good, right? And so forth. So that's very high expectations. What happens when you have very high expectations that are not based in reality? What's usually the result? You get what?
Disappointed.
You get disappointed. Yes, you get disappointed. And when you get disappointed, you become unhappy. Okay, let's do the other one then. Let's look at that one. What if I don't have any expectations of anybody else? And all I'm thinking about, what can I help and what can I do for them? What type of expectation am I going to have from them? None. I don't want anything from them. I don't want anything from them. Because they don't have any power to do anything for me. That's the whole thing. When you say, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, what does that mean?
There's no power but God.
Right, so what can they do for me? And then when I go on and say, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel, ni'mal mawla wa ni'mal wakeel, what does that mean? Means Allah is enough for me. I don't need any more than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'm shifting socially how I do my relationships from having these high expectations from people to making my relationship with Allah. And then if it's with Allah, then the expectations come from Allah, not from me. So what does He expect from me? He expects me to treat these people right, to treat them kindly, treat them gently, ad-din al-mu'amala, right? The Prophet ﷺ said there's nothing heavier in the scales than husn al-khuluq. There's nothing heavier for you in the day of judgment than good character. إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمِ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I have not been sent except to perfect this good character. So then, I'm not doing it for them. You might say, well, they're not nice to me, why should I be nice to them? Because you're not being nice to them because they're being nice to you. That's not the reason. If that were the reason, then I'd say, yeah, I agree with you, why would you be nice to them? But if the reason you are nice to them is because Allah wants you to be nice to them, and Allah wants you to be nice to your mom, and to your dad, and to your brothers and sisters, and to your friends, and to your neighbors, and to your cousins, and to the Uber driver, and to the, you know what that is yet, don't know, and to the vendor, and to your accountant, and to your barber, and to your grocer, and to the cashier. They say that you know the character of somebody in two situations. One, when they become angry, and two, when they're in a position to do harm to someone who has no power to do anything to them. So, if you see people who like yell at people who are like cashiers and people who work in service industry, like waiters at tables and waitresses, and you see them like, you know, be very mean and nasty to them, and if you found that in yourself, know you have a serious character flaw. Because the only reason you did that is because you know there's not much they can do to you, right? They're waiting for the tip, and the customer's always right, so on and so forth. So you feel, you know, this impunity that you can, I can do whatever I want. And then you act upon it. So that means the test of a good character is, how are you when you're angry, when someone makes you angry, but nevertheless, you still treat them kindly? Or how are you when you have the power to harm somebody, right, who's not in a position to get back at you, but you say, no, that's not right. When you're in a position and you have the ability to harm somebody, and you choose not to, this is something Rabban. It's something that Allah does. Doesn't Allah have the ability to harm all of us and do the bad things and take us to revenge? He doesn't. In Allah kana afuwan qadira. So al-afu ma'al qudra. There's no afu without qudra. Al-afu means I'm gonna not take revenge upon them, even though I have the ability to do so. But if I don't have the ability to do so, it's not afu. So let's say, I don't know, Ustaz Tariq, he goes out of Masjid Al-Aman, he makes a turn over on Red Hill Road, and gets to the light, and he's just looking at his phone for a second, and the light turns green, and the guy behind him is like honking his horn, and he's flashing the lights, and it looks like he has an F-150 pickup truck, but Ustaz Tariq doesn't care about that, so he's mad. He said, okay, I'm going to show him. So he gets out of the car, right, and then he walks towards the guy. Then this guy gets out of his car. I think he's like 6'5", 275 pounds, chiseled muscle, right? And he still has his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gi on, and you see that it's a black belt.
Overpowered, man.
So then, Stada says, you know what? You ain't worth it. I'm gonna let you go. Would we call that being letting him go? Not really. Because even though he's a tough guy, I think, you go up to Staten Island, he's a tough guy, but he's not gonna be tough enough for this big, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. But if he gets out of the car, and then he goes to the other car, and this guy's like, 110 pounds, and he's really skinny, and he's like 5'3". Then if he says, you know what am I getting angry about? He says, my mistake, I should have moved when the light turned green. Sorry about that, I just came here to apologize. He has the ability to do whatever he wants then. But if he acts that way, then we say, oh, that's different. And if you do something like that, you'll feel it inside of you. You'll feel like, oh, I feel this is different than I am. This is like the best version of me coming out. Because when I have an opportunity like this, and I don't seek the worst option, and I seek the best option, and if you have the ability to do it once and twice and 3 times and 4 times, then guess what happens? You are the best version of yourself. You become that. That's who you become now. And that worst version, the lower version of yourself, that person's not there anymore. Yeah.
It's as if your mom's telling you to go to sleep at 9:30 o'clock, and your mom reminds you to get off the computer. And when you say you have to get off the computer, like that's pulling out your best version of yourself.
I have something better than that. What if you don't wait for your mom to tell you to get off the computer?
Okay.
And you did it all by yourself? How do you think she would feel? If she saw you in bed at 9:30 and she didn't have to tell you, get off the computer. How do you think she would feel?
I think she would feel like way happier than she would be reminding.
Exactly. So that's just kind of a taster about, hopefully we'll have a discussion about doing this once a month. And then maybe, I did read the book, I wanted to kind of start with you, but I think that's for the next time. Inshallah, I don't have to go above people's attention span, which is roughly 40 minutes, I think, sustained. So I'm going to stop here. If anyone has any more questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, thank you very much for coming around and attending. I hope to do this very soon. Once again, inshallah, for volunteering to kind of be the example a little bit, and also for inviting me. But yeah, he brought it upon himself. He wrote, I know his hat tonight, so I anyway. Jazakumullah khair.
Hold on. Sit down, we're not finished. Sit down. Can we please sit down? Manaf. So this is sort of a heavy topic, and I think we've touched upon it, and we can expand upon it, obviously. But I wanted to see if there was any questions that we have. I think, like I said, it's a topic that weighs heavily, and then I think it opens a lot of discussion. So I just want to make sure that we give a few minutes to questions and answers, inshallah. So, go ahead, yes, on.
What's your diet like right now? How do you
I'm like totally keto. No. Honestly, I used to kind of do whatever I want, but now it's probably the past 10, 15 years or so, I kind of try to pay attention to what I do. I'm not always very good at it, but I try to not snack as much as I can. That's number one. I think that what makes a big difference. Like, you have set times in the day, so I'm going to eat when I'm hungry. Not because I'm just eating because there's nothing else to eat. That's the thing. And also, I try to stay away from processed food as much as I can. So I can't remember last time I had like a Twinkie or a cupcake or any of those things you get in the vending machines. My one vice is potato chips, but other than that, I'm not interested in any of those kind of very sweet carb things. And I usually go to the gym every morning. I'm not doing anything else. And honestly, if that's how you start the day, I feel much better. I feel much different, and I usually get by 5 to 6 hours of sleep, and I don't need more than that. So.
So you don't eat a lot of meat?
No, I eat protein, I eat meat, but again, I try to keep it in moderation. I try not to have a whole lot of it. So I think the emphasis is quality over quantity. So I rather pay a little bit more for quality food than have a lot of, it used to be the opposite. It used to be people who didn't have a lot of money couldn't afford to buy food. Now it's flipped. The people who don't have a lot of money can afford to buy food, but they buy the cheapest stuff, which is the worst stuff. And then the people who actually have money, it actually costs more to eat healthy than it costs to eat not healthy. When soda is cheaper than water, something's wrong. Right? When I can get the 2 liter Pepsi for less than the Evian water, why? How is that possible? Because there's something about how all that works, which another discussion, and the corn subsidy, high fructose corn syrup that's in this country and things like that. If you're interested really to see one of the best documentaries about this called Food Inc. There's also a book by the same name that kind of outlines how the processed food industry is specifically designed to make us addicted to these processed foods and then puts us in the shape that we're in. And really the worst one ingredient that is found in everything that is the most detrimental thing to our diet is sugar. So they put sugar in bread, they put sugar in ketchup, they put sugar in hot dogs, and everything. Everything has an element of sugar in it, and then whatever derivative of the glucose, whether it's high fructose corn syrup or actually sugar itself or glucose. All of these things, our bodies weren't designed to intake so much sugar. And the thing about sugar is, if you eat too much of it and you can't process it, then this is what causes you to get fat. So it's not even about high caloric intake, but your body can absorb all of that. And this is the result. And then your palate gets used to it. You get used to everything sugary. So when you don't have something that's a high content of sugar, you feel like it doesn't taste right. But once you wean yourself off of it, like go cold turkey on sugar for a month, try it. And then you go back to something sweet, like, oh, this is too sweet. Right? Because you've got your palate to get away from that. So, there are forces working against us that are only out there for their own interest. And I don't want to talk too much about this, but the people who design Facebook and Instagram, they specifically designed it so you spend too much time on it. So you don't leave it. So it activates dopamine kind of sparks in your head and you keep staying on it. And the people who designed Pringles did the same thing. The advertisement isn't a joke. You can't eat just one because they made it addictive. They put elements into it so that you can't eat just one. You keep eating more of them and then you're actually not full after you eat it. It's a completely non-nutritional value whatsoever. But yet it's there just so people can eat it for comfort. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of awareness when we feed our kids these things. And we just give them in their lunchbox little potato chips and Cheetos and all these other things, and they think that's food. It's not food. That stuff is not food. It's a food product. It was designed in a laboratory and manufactured in a laboratory with certain compounds in it. It's not a truly sourced food. So that's my number one piece of advice. You have something to add to that?
I think that's why I keep, every time I buy, a large Pringle container and an extra large chocolate bar, I keep eating it. When my mom says to eat half of it and save the other half, I keep eating it.
Yeah. So
It's sad.
Going back to when you said that you should stop yourself from eating all of the food on your plate or something.
Well, what I mean stop and feed by choice is don't put that much on your plate to begin with. Not
So
like,
like,
don't.
for example, at restaurants, where they serve you a big, like, patty.
Very problematic at a restaurant. One of the things that you could do is usually the amount of food for one person is good enough for two. But you don't want to look like, oh, these two people are cheap and only getting one plate. So what you can do is get like something that's a little bit larger than maybe like an appetizer on the side or something. And I found sometimes we do that, and definitely if you're like 5 people, the 4 or 3 plates is more than enough to feed 5. You don't need everyone to have their own individual. And honestly, I would say eating out in restaurants a lot is not very healthy either. Not health-wise and not spiritually wise. Because, it's a commercial venture and it's just there to make money. It's not really looking at your own best interest. And just to prepare your own food and to have someone who's, cares about you prepare your food and they eat it together is a much different experience. One of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, it said, كَانَ لَا يَأْكُلُ اللَّحْمَ إِلَّا عَلَى ضَفَرٍ. He wouldn't eat meat except it was in a group. Like there was guests, and there's kind of celebrating the idea that, because it was a celebration, to be able to eat meat, as I said before, was a luxury. And so when you have access to that, then you invite a lot of people, and to kind of join in the celebration. The way we eat also as individuals now too. How many of you here today ate at least one meal all by yourself? No one was with you. Everybody, right? Some degree. It used to be like that. People used to eat together. And people actually used to share a plate. Like one big plate. And when you're sharing one big plate, you actually eat less. Right? Because you're all kind of eating about the same amount, versus these individual plates, and then you look at food as sort of an individual activity. And then if you have brothers and sisters and you're like, oh, how come they got the big piece of chicken and I got the little piece of chicken? Right? And then there's this comparison. So there's a lot of benefits to actually eating together and eating community, which was the way of our prophets.
Firstly, Jazakallah khair for the talk. I was just hoping or asking if you can maybe point out 1 or 2 things that we can implement today to start improving and making ourselves better.
I thought we just did that.
That's a summary.
I'll give you 2 things. One, I guess for your age group, if you're not doing it already, not to sleep after prayer. That makes a big difference in your life. And try to do also some, in addition to maybe some morning dhikr that you can go on, also incorporate some sort of physical activity. Even if it's like a 10-minute walk, or if you're not going to go outside, a 10-minute on the treadmill if you have access to that, or even download one of those, that 7-minute workout thing and just do that. Anything like that just gets you going in the morning. And also to pay particular attention to the manner in which you wake up and the manner in which you go to sleep. So like the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning, how about not reach for the phone and see what the messages you got? Try that for a week in a row. And how about the last thing we do before we go to sleep? We don't look at the phone, and we also read like the last verses of Surah Al-Baqarah, or hatta read the Fatiha and go to sleep on that, or go to sleep reading something. Not the phone though, not the internet, but like a book, something beneficial. And you'll find, because a big part, believe it or not, we can get into this tonight, but a big part of your spiritual life is how you spend your time sleeping, what you dream about. What you dream about is not an accident. You can actually have some influence on what you dream about. If you're so busy right before you sleep with, movies and TV and a lot of imagery, and then you go to sleep on that, chances are you're going to dream about it too. But if you go to sleep ala dhikrullah, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reading some of the Quran, contemplating, and then you go to sleep on that, then Allah is going to show you things in your dreams that's going to make you stronger inside.
So I think in some respect, so Muhammad and everybody else, it really depends on you taking an honest look internally, like Sheikh Waleed mentioned, looking at yourself internally, and being honest with yourself to say, okay, this is a strength of mine, but this is also a weakness of mine. And then going out and seeing, this is a weakness, how can I correct it? So maybe, just as an example, maybe somebody is going to sleep without praying Isha. He's watching TV or they're getting too busy with this entertainment culture, and then they're going to sleep without praying Isha. Well, then somebody like that can think, I'm going to be praying Salatul Isha in the Masjid every day, and I'm going to stop that, right? So it really requires each and every one of us to look inside and see what it is that we have as a weakness, and figure out ways and put in the discipline to correct that.
طيب جزاكم الله خير بارك الله فيكم.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, and maybe this is to be discussed at future talks, but how does the fitra relate to the best version of yourself?
That's a very good question that needs a lot of explanation, but briefly I would say that if you think of the best version of yourself as like, a line, then the fitra is the first point in that line. It's the right point to start from. So what causes us not to be the best version of ourselves is the deviation from the fitra. So if this is the beginning of it, and we go like this and go like that, and we're not on a straight line anymore. So the fitrah, التي فطر الناس عليها, that everybody has, means we're programmed, think of it that way, we're programmed already to have the good start and to be in the good way, not the opposite. It's not like you're fighting to be something that you never were. No, you're fighting to be the thing that you're always meant to be. You're fighting to go back to the thing that you always were. So it's actually described as a return back. Even the word yatub means to go back to something. Or munib, right? Munib also means inab, to go back to where you're supposed to be. So when we say in the Fatiha, ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, guide us to the straight path. Well, aren't we already on it? If we're reading the Fatiha? Yes, but you can deviate. So you need to also work to remain on it. And so the fitrah is starting point and where we were before, and we have deviated from it, but it's comforting to know that that's who we are actually. That's what we're trying to go back to. We're not reinventing something that we're not. We're going back to the original thing that we always meant to be. So thank you all. Alhamdulillah, thank you for coming. 9:30. جزاكم الله خير. بارك فيكم. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يوفقنا جميعا لطاعة وطاعة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يلهمنا الرشد والصواب، وأن يفضل علينا بأنواعه وبركاته ونفحاته، وأن يعطي كل سائل سؤاله. وإلى حضرة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم الفاتحة.
جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.